Today's video is brought to you by AlmostHeaven.com. Handcrafting at-home saunas since 1977. Want better sleep, less stress, and faster recovery? Now's the perfect time. Shop saunas, cold plunges, hybrids, and accessories. Use our exclusive code at checkout to save 5%. Link below.
Back alongside my sharp dress co-host, Bo Parrish, I'm Dave Erickson. And, you know, in the world of sports, a team must, quote, buy in to the system in which they're in. The coaches are preaching, this is how we're going to attack our opponent, and here's what we're going to do. And the team has to accept this vision and has to accept the motivation that is being presented to them. And it's all because they believe in the messenger who has the vision for them. And today's topic is motivation, and it has a strong underlying theme of belief. Bo, take it from there.
Absolutely, Dave. And I think first off, it's important to remember that motivation is simply a matter of memorability. In other words, that which adds momentum to anything in life, whether it be sport, whether it be work, whether that be play. Momentum being a consistent buildup of movement is eventually going to lead to that memorability. That which can be remembered was eventually once a motivation. Think about those in your life who have provided the most significant encouragement at any stage. And it's always easy to talk about sports. So, perhaps let's think of this in the career field. Dave, I can still remember my mentor from a business standpoint while I was yet still in college, who motivated me outside of my mind. Why? Because he was in a position that I aspired to be in. Our interests were aligned, and he saw potential in me that had not yet been developed. And so rather than pull me along against my will, he started with a simple motivation. And that was, Bo, I believe you can do this, but it matters not until you too believe. So there's a certain element of sincerity that is absolutely required for motivation to be meaningful. On the flip side, we also can identify those talking heads that are simply in the spotlight to hear themselves speak that we have no respect for. Now, I'm not going to name any names, but we all know of a certain few types that are all bull and no horns, or they're all talk and no action. Not to say that they have not accomplished anything, but perhaps they accomplished something small, and they saw that as an opportunity to create somewhat of a mirage of, I'm going to talk at you rather than with you and for you, because I'm so-and-so and I did something miraculous 20 years ago. That goes in one ear and out the other because there's no sincerity there. When we are motivated in the direction of momentum, in other words, today we take one step, tomorrow we take two steps, the next day we take four, and eventually momentum builds. That is going to lead us to the movement that is required in order for us to work into that memorability. But it all starts with motivation. And for me, as a teenager in college, there was one mentor that I still remember, that I still credit to my desire to want to be in the people business. Because at the root of people, oh, by the way, the world is crowded with them, is the ability to communicate. And the bigger portion of that communication is not what is natural to us, which is speaking, but rather listening. And I was taught the fine art of listening as a teenager in order to facilitate any amount of success in the sales industry. That was all a product of motivation from a mentor that I had a huge amount of respect for due to the influence that he had on my life at that particular time. So motivation is a matter of creating a memory that has to start with momentum. Momentum begins small, it eventually works its way up to the level that is needed in order to make that necessary change, to move in that right direction. Motivation creates that chain reaction.
Now, you said there are people out there who might be talking heads who really don't have enough clout in the industry or in life, and yet they think they do. The type of people that motivate us most are two things that you told me about: people that we relate to and people who we have interest in doing what they do. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. So I think the first one's a no-brainer. Is that which we are not interested in, we're simply not going to take notice. You and I were speaking before we came on, is that neither you nor I are billiards players. So there's a famous pool player who just happens to be a female that goes by the name of the Black Widow, and she supposedly dominates on the billiards tour. Well, for us to be motivated by her in order to hit the perfect pool shot, it wouldn't be relevant because there's no interest. Where on the flip side, if we were to gain an audience with a top professional, say Andy Potts or our own Richie Cunningham or perhaps Craig Alexander, on what it takes to get to Kona, well, they would naturally have our attention because of the common interest that we have. On the flip side, that admiration, that respect above and beyond the common interest, because we all know there are plenty of people in our sport that we do not respect simply because there's a clash of character for whatever reason. So when you combine interest with respect, it's only a matter of time, or it's going to take a natural disaster to keep us away from pursuing an audience with that person, because they could say two words to us: let's go. And that will give us the confidence to charge through a brick wall and see to it that we made it to the other side. So motivation being from a common interest and mutual respect, well, that only adds to the degree of the total effectiveness of that motivation. I mean, the main thing I want to get at here is that there is sincerity that is absolutely required in order for the motivation to be effective. You know, Dave, I think about the famous Saturday Night Live skit that Chris Farley did, and I think it was the early 1990s, and it was this whole routine of being a motivational speaker and to do something to be as all you can be so you can avoid living in a van down by the river. Well, that was hilarious. We all laughed and giggled, but at the end of the day, that was a skit. That wasn't real. And we have to have something that is motivating us other than being kicked out of our house and living in fear of living in a van down by the river. There's just no sincerity there.
You know, there are people out there who we may not aspire to be like, but they motivate us because they believe in us and they see our potential. They see the greatness within that we don't quite see yet. And whether it's it's a boss or a coach or a mentor, there's something about what they bring to the table that inspires us. There's a level of enthusiasm, and I know you have something to talk about when it comes to enthusiasm, when it comes to motivation.
So, Dave, outside of using our physical words, what can we observe on the part of those who believe in us that can actually give us the sense that they are trying to motivate us? And that is simply in their enthusiasm. Okay, we know the difference between a stone cold, emotionless face and a rah-rah cheerleader saying, go, you can do it. Okay, they're polar opposites. We can pick up on enthusiasm very naturally, but another check and measure to enthusiasm is that if you think about it at its root, it really does have a sound. And the way that I like to say it is take the last four letters of the word enthusiasm, IASM. And that's simply short for I am sold myself. I am sold myself manifests itself in belief. So your mentor, per se, my mentor as a college student, believed in me. But rather than just taking their word for it, he showed me that he believed in me by encouraging me, Dave. And there's so many parallels between encouragement and motivation, which, keep in mind, encouragement is nothing more than giving courage away. And it can be validated because that person whom is giving you encouragement has already traveled that road that you're looking to travel. And so they know the way. If you're giving me directions on how to get from Nashville, Tennessee to Spokane, Washington, you can direct me because you've driven that path. I have never driven that path. So I have no other reason but to believe you because you yourself have traveled that road. Those who have come before us, those who have experienced the ups and downs, the challenges, the obstacles, the setbacks, are the prime candidates to become motivators for our future momentum that will eventually turn into forward motion.
I think about motivation and the people who have motivated me in the past, and it really has been the people who have taken the time to listen, that have given me room to grow and given me the chance to fail, and saying, here's the road. I need you to go on it on your own because there's some valuable lessons along the way, and I'm going to kind of give you a little nudge and love. That's kind of a weird thing, but here, I love you so much. I want you to go down this road because I believe in you.
And how do they really, that's the perfect description of this lead in, because how do they demonstrate their love for you? In other words, at some point you believe, you truly buy into the fact that they love you. And the way that they give you that confidence is that they listen to you. They don't talk at you. They don't take for granted that you're going to buy into whatever it is they say because they're 5, 10, 15, 20 years older than you. Then they have a few more bucks in the bank than you do. But they take the time to come down off their platform, connect with you, get elbow to elbow, and simply listen to what it is that you are trying to accomplish at this point in your life. And understanding that once you share that with them, unintentionally, you have made yourself accountable to the vision that you have cast for your mentor. That vision is all they need to motivate you forward. Because wherever it is you're going, if you don't on a regular basis have the desire to quit, either your why isn't big enough, or you have not challenged yourself to reach your fullest potential. Because nothing in life worth having is easy. And we all know that. Because if it was, the world would be filled with millionaires, would be filled with accomplished athletes, would be filled with completely content and fulfilled citizens. So the reason I believe so strongly in motivation is due to the state of the world that we live in. I mean, not an hour goes by that we are not inundated with some negative news. News tends to stir up our emotions on two opposite sides of the spectrum. And if you can picture a pendulum swinging between fear and greed, the two most dominant emotions when it comes to decision making. Just turn on the TV and watch for 5 minutes. Just open your local newspaper and read for 2 minutes. You are bound to run into some type of story that either causes you fear or causes you greed. And the natural inclination is going to want to act on either one of those emotions. Well, those emotions have no part in our rational decision making, whereas motivation, to look beyond, to look above the news that is being reported. And keep in mind, we either watch news or we make news. I would rather make news because that which I observe must have already occurred. And for me to observe someone else moving in the right direction is an indication that I myself am not taking full advantage of the motivation that I'm receiving and acting on that momentum that I so desperately need to create. So I'm looking for motivation to move me beyond myself, because it's going to take more than Bo to move in the direction that I want to move. And that's why I'm such a firm believer in surrounding myself with positive people who reinforce the vision that I shared with them. And that's another reason, Dave, why I make myself so darn accountable, is that if I fail, and I hope I do fail, because failure is just part of the process of becoming great, that I'm going to have to share that failure, and I'm going to have to get my teeth kicked in, my back brushed off with dirt, and encouraged or motivated to get back up and go do it again. Because ultimately it's going to pay off, because that momentum is going to sustain itself when that belief takes over. Early, your confidence as the chief motivator is my confidence, but eventually my confidence is going to take over, because I see the momentum that I've seen created, and I see the potential being developed into a greater purpose.
How do we recognize the false motivators? And you're talking about momentum right there, and listening. What are the traits or things that we should look for, the red flags that people are presenting themselves as true motivators?
Well, so a key red flag is that motivation all points back to self. Self-centered motivation is no motivation at all. It's simply promotion. And I think about the World Wrestling Federation. I don't know if you used to watch the WWF growing up, but Hulk Hogan, Vince McMahon, the Ultimate Warrior, all they would do would take the microphone and talk about how awesome they were and how they were going to kill everybody that they got in the ring with. Well, as a 10-year-old boy, that got me fired up. That was motivating to go wrestle with my buddies in the room. But it was finite, because the minute the World Wrestling Federation 2, 3, 4, 5, the Royal Rumble was over, I'm like, now what? There's no relationship there with myself and Vince McMahon or any one of the World Wrestling Federation wrestlers. So the big red flag is motivation that is self-serving is not motivation at all. It's simply promoting their own self-interest. So when I had nothing to gain by you reaching your potential, and I'm still willing to give courage in the form of motivation or encouragement, that's when true motivation takes over. That's when sincerity becomes the overriding principle. And that's what makes relationships so meaningful.
That seems like a really obvious and easy thing to recognize, because they are wanting you to cheer for them, whereas the true motivator is cheering for you and wanting you to be the champion in the Royal Rumble, for example.
You got it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. A final thought here before we wrap this up on motivation, the shared vision, people buying into a system or a belief philosophy.
I would actually say, think about where you are on your current path of life, and think about the things that you are most proud of. Think about the process that led up to the accomplishment of that task, and figure out a way how to share that experience with someone that you can identify who is pursuing the path that you are now towards the end of. Motivate that person by simply sharing with them, I believe in you. Let's get to work, because this is the path that I see you wanting to travel. That which is caught, not necessarily taught, will eventually lead to motivation that leads to momentum that ultimately creates that movement that is necessary to create lasting memories.
Sounds like a pay it forward type of thinking as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
passing on the motivation, the momentum that you receive to others if you recognize some of the same traits that you had in them.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. Davis, thank you for the recap.
All right, Bo Parrish, thanks very much. This has been All About Motivation.
Looking for a great at-home sauna at a great price? Get 5% off any indoor or outdoor sauna, cold plunge, or infrared sauna from Almost Heaven with my discount code DAVE, 5% off at checkout. For over 40 years, Almost Heaven saunas have been trusted as the top American home sauna manufacturer. Almost Heaven saunas deliver high-quality products and firmly stands behind the holistic benefits the sauna brings to your mind and your body. Again, get 5% off any order with my discount code DAVE, 5% off at almostheaven.com. There's also a direct link below this video.